It's time for the Seacoast's only sports talk show, McIsaac on Sports. Interviews, opinions, incoherent ranting, and you. And now, here's your host, Justin McIsaac.
All right, thanks very much. Thanks for being here, everybody. McIsaac on Sports each and every Saturday morning. This is the place to be, and we're not messing around today. Right off the bat, live from Montreal, the voice of the Bruins on NESN, Jack Edwards is with us. Jack, thank you so much for getting up early and joining us.
Good morning, Justin. Well, you know, game day, I'm up before 7, so it's this is mid-morning here.
Well, yeah, I do morning drive, so I'm feeling you. But you are in Montreal. You're in the Lions' Den. And as I said to you, do you get an armed guard to go across the border there? Is it sort of like a Red Dawn situation? You need Wolverines surrounding you. How does that work?
Yeah, you know, I hear it a little bit, but I hear it in every, including Boston. So, okay. But most fans, overwhelming majority, probably even 99% of the fans here are just great, passionate hockey fans, and they want their team to win. So great, you know, that's what puts the roof over my head.
That absolutely, and you guys finally, you and Brick get to do a Bruins-Canadiens game. NBC had been stealing them all, which is, I prefer to hear you and Brick doing the Bruins-Canadiens. I love Doc Emmerich, but still. Yeah,
and Doc does a great job, but having been on that side of it, having worked for ESPN for 12 years, I can tell you that there is no conceivable way that you can have the same idea of the pulse of a team, the way it's playing day in, day out, when you're working for a national carrier than you can when you're working for a regional carrier, simply because the Bruins are one of 30 teams, and even if you separate the wheat from the chaff, the Bruins are one of probably 16 or 17 teams that you got to keep a relatively close eye on, and that's just an overwhelming volume of work. Hockey is a game that can't be boiled down to statistics the way you can sort of cut corners in your baseball research and seem to be somewhat of an expert, because you've got to watch the games. You simply have to watch the games, and you can't possibly get the feel for a team that is necessary until you see them, for instance, in a playoff series. By game 3 or 4, you've got a pretty good beat on them, but in the course of the regular season, you can't just drop in out of a cloud and really know what you're talking about as much as the people who are with the team every day.
Yeah, advanced statistics don't really translate well to hockey, I don't think, anyway. But this is a much different team, I think, than the last time we spoke, because, first of all, of course, the big trade for Jaromir Jagr, which 1994 Justin McIsaac went crazy for. But I do think he's going to be a very important part of this team. But my main concern is the Patrice Bergeron injury, which I don't want to say it's been swept under the rug, but I don't think it's getting the attention it really deserves amongst, your casual Joe Sixpack hockey fan. I think this is a real issue for the Bruins.
I think it's an avoidance technique on everybody's part. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to address it. We're all in denial.
Yeah.
This is a serious injury. It may just be one of those things that Bergeron's able to make a relatively quick recovery and come back after 7 to 10 days. That would be the best-case scenario. But we've all seen players who are less or more robust than Patrice Bergeron be out for more or less time because of a hit to the head. Now that brain injuries are being studied better and that we're able to quantify the parameters that are necessary for a player to meet to return to the game, there's extra caution with this, because people do realize that you're going to, at least theoretically, live a lot longer outside of hockey than you've lived on the ice, and it's a real concern. Bergeron is the best all-around player on the Bruins. He's one of the best all-around players in the NHL, and the addition of Jagr is less of a positive than the negative of losing Bergeron, and the Bruins especially are going to feel that tonight against a Montreal team that is an excellent hockey team.
Yes, and it's the little things you don't really, things like defensive zone face-offs, stuff like that you don't really, he's never going to be on the cover of NHL 2014 for EA Sports, because he's not he's not a flashy player, but it's just so many things he does, and it's like you said, an avoidance technique when you don't talk about the sick relative or something like that. But 4 concussions, that really concerns me as a guy that's had a few concussions, and by the way I act, you can tell, but the 4 concussions concerns me.
Yeah, and it should. And I'm not going to minimize this by saying what I'm about to say. So take it in that context. But in the same way that we're able to find poisons in our human living environment because of better detection methods, such as incredibly small traces of certain heavy metals or benzene or chemicals like that are harmful to human health, and that's a good thing that we're able to detect them better. In the same way, we're able to detect changes in the brain than we were even 5 years ago. So that's the reason for caution and the reason that concussions are actually being counted now. If you listen to Jaromir Jagr, a guy who had an enormously successful NHL career, he knows for sure that he had at least 13 concussions.
Wow. Just
by the time he missed and knowing what happened to him and thinking back about the conditions that he was in. I would say that if you play more than 5 years, at least 15 minutes a game in the NHL, your chance of having a concussion is 100%. Somebody is going to hit you in such a way, or you're going to have a collision in such a way that you're going to suffer at least a concussion. It's almost impossible with the speed of the game. And so it's very dangerous work for these guys. And the number 4 is a bad number because any number over 0 is a bad number.
Right.
But I don't think we should necessarily become fixated on that number.
Yeah, it's amazing that anybody ever played this game without helmets on. But a chain reaction of the Bergeron injury, you watch the old film and my mind explodes. But a chain reaction to that is Tyler Seguin moving to centerman. Do you think he's going to be able to, it's a transition he's going to be able to make, or is this just an experiment that Claude Julien is doing as we're in the finishing kick towards the playoffs?
Experiment, but Claude is a very cautious and conservative man when it comes to changing the way his team is going to look on the ice. And perhaps we best can appreciate Patrice Bergeron's ability to play the position by contrasting it with Tyler Seguin, who is a very, very good young, someday will be an excellent NHL center. Out of space that you have to cover, the amount of territory you have to cover from boards to boards, and get deep into your defensive zone, even in the crease, in a normal situation in defensive coverage, requires that you think about 2 steps ahead of the play.
Right.
And Seguin really struggled with that in the game the other night. So that's a consideration. But you don't want to take the speed off of any line on which Brad Marchand is playing.
Yes.
And you want to create as much space for Jaromir Jagr as you possibly can. And it was as a result of the Bruins able to move up the ice quickly that Marchand's pass, Jagr in the skate and going in for the only goal of the game 2 nights ago against New Jersey. So I guess that's a long one. It is an experiment in a way in that Claude Julien could call it off and put somebody else in there, but that's the primary goal right now, to get Seguin's game up to the level where he can be extremely competitive as an NHL center, and there's almost no doubt that eventually he's going to end up playing that position because that's where he's going to have the most space and be the most dangerous player for the Boston Bruins in the long run.
All right, we're talking with Jack Edwards, the voice of the Bruins on NESN. That's Big Bad Bruins at 6:30 tonight, and the Bruins and the Canadiens at 7. Always a good one, Bruins and Canadiens, the best rivalry in the NHL for my viewing dollar. 11 games left in the season, Jack. Tuukka Rask, I thought, turned in his best performance of the night the other night against New Jersey. If you listen to the Boston radio stations, which I do, because we're the only sports show in New Hampshire really worth listening to, so I listen to the Boston stations. A lot of chirping going on about Tuukka versus Hudobin. Maybe Hudobin's the number one. Did Tuukka hear the footsteps, so to speak, or is it just or is that all hooey and applesauce?
Well, 168 hours a week is an awful lot of inventory to fill.
That's true.
When you're in the 10th largest media market, you got to say something outrageous to get people to listen to you, and a lot of that happens, including on the Bruins' flagship carrier. So, you can do the addition on the 2+2 there. So, if you're actually going to the games and you're watching Hudobin play, you know that he's coming up with some big saves. But in the same way that Tim Thomas made spectacular saves in his first year with the Bruins, sometimes those saves are saving his own previous mistakes.
Right.
Khudobin is a very, very good goalie, don't get me wrong, but he ends up past the post frequently. In every single game, he ends up sliding past the post. There's no reason for an NHL goaltender to slide past the post. You don't have to guard the territory outside the post.
Right.
And that is the primary technical correction that goalie coach Bob Essenza made in Tim Thomas's game between his first year and his second year. And then in his third year, his third full season with the Bruins, Thomas ended up winning the Vezina Trophy. And I'm not saying that Khudobin's going to win the Vezina Trophy, but technically he's nowhere near Rask in terms of proficiency. Mm-hmm. And I know it's all about stopping the puck, and Khudobin has done a very, very good job of that. But there is no doubt that Tuukka Rask is the Bruins' number one goalie. Khudobin is an excellent backup at this point, but nobody in the organization is talking about, well, you know, it looks like Dobie's going to be the guy that we're going to playoff. That said, it's always have a little bit of discomfort in the parts of the people who are in leading roles, whether they be the starting goaltender or a top pair defenseman or your top six forwards. It's always good to know that there's somebody there to take your job in case you hit a flat spot and don't help your team enough.
It never hurts. Listen, I know an intern off the street could take my job, so that's why I'm always uncomfortable, Jack.
That's what management always tells us. On the other hand, they did hire guys like you and me, so we must have had something going for us.
That's true. You know, right place, the right time in my case, I think, Jack, was the. But Jack Edwards, we know you got a lot of prep to do. You got to get over to the Bell Center and all that, so I appreciate taking time on game day. Don't miss Jack tonight, along with Andy Brickley on NESN. The Bruins and the Canadiens, best rivalry in the NHL. And I don't know if linesman Brian Murphy is working the game tonight, but he's an assistant coach for the Dover High Green Wave. I don't know if you guys ever chirp at each other about Oyster River and Dover, but I think that should happen. Mini one-on-one, Jack Edwards versus Brian Murphy.
Well, I'll tell you what, I could call the game, but all I could say is there goes Murphy, because he can skate.
Yeah.
He's a really good guy, too. Really good guy.
Absolutely is. Talk to him before Dover games all the time. Well, Jack, thanks so much, and I look forward to talking to you down the road. Just 11 games left, so have fun tonight.
Justin, it's always fun to be with you. Thanks.
All right, there he is, Jack Edwards, the voice of the Bruins on NESN. Really good of him to join us this morning. He's got a lot of stuff to do, and but still takes time for WTSN. That's what we like to see. All right, we're going to take a timeout when we come back. If you've got your phone calls about the beginning of the baseball season, NCAA Final Four, Bruins, whatever you want, we're going to talk about it next on McIsaac on Sports.
McIsaac on Sports! We'll be right back on McIsaac on Sports. Don't go anywhere.